In the U.S. alone, someone is killed every 54 minutes by a drunk driver. In the last 10 years, nearly 20,000 of those killed were under the age of 21. The number of people suffering the pain of these deaths, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, grandparents, family, friends, and others, exceeds 800,000. Here is one of those stories.
Knowing that I was pregnant with twins was quite an exciting thing for me. Just an extra special blessing, I thought, because motherhood for me was just what I was meant to do. I put them in the same crib, one down at one end and one down at the other end going across the crib, and I separated them thinking that they would disturb each other if they were touching. About 15 minutes later, I came in, and they had wiggled and wiggled and worked their way until they were touching. I realized, at that moment that the bond that they shared was so close.
The idea that Megan and I's relationship was just sisters, not to me, not at all. She's my best friend.
We had a great childhood. I was the middle child. We were close in age, so I think that kept us close, to each other as we grew up.
Every day, the whole family would pack up and go to the beach. We'd pack the cooler and walk across the street, and literally hours were spent at the beach. Megan and I would always be belly up to the cooler, wherever the snacks were, wherever the soft drinks were. That kind of became a laughing joke.
It's wonderful being the mother of boys because they love their moms. Eric Smallridge is my baby boy. In many ways, they've all been the joy of my life, but he was, as the baby, special in a number of ways.
He was always the best athlete, probably was the best student with the grades. He was just a tenacious kid, he was full of energy, and he was so competitive against even myself when we would play basketball or anything.
We went on a lot of campouts. Quite frequently, we'd go out and cook chili and stay out in the great outdoors overnight and the like, even when they were very young. Rainey was a den mom, I was a cub leader, and all of the three boys are Eagle Scouts.
Some of my fondest memories of him, honestly, were kind of living vicariously through him in his athletic prowess, if you wish, but he was a 4-year letterman for the soccer team at Leon High School. I used to travel with the team on the bus and support Eric, and he was a goalkeeper, and that was really cool getting to watch him.
In high school, Megan and I, and Michelle as well, we were involved with the football team as the football managers.
We thought we were so cool getting, to be close with all the football players. And then we would travel with them to the game.
Megan and I were always closer with the guys. We kind of had a guy crowd and not a girl crowd. So I think that might have influenced our ability to hang with the group in college. We imbibed, we did. We partied, we drank. Somehow, some way, someone would be able to get a bottle, of whatever kind of rum or whatever you wanted, and had the most awful mixers together. We had no clue what we were doing.
Eric got caught up in that, just like a lot of kids did, just like I did. And, with him being so popular in high school, he quickly made friends in college, and it spilled over into the whole fraternity thing and rushing, and he did, drink and drive.
I think that there were times Megan and I might have made a better choice by not driving each other. Kind of the thing where you look at each other and say, okay, you had one less than me, so you'll be okay to drive me home. And not only between Megan and I, that wasn't the conversation, but between our friends as well. And it did get to the point where we had to really step back and say, okay, you really had one less drink. You'll be okay to drive, here's the keys. Get us home.
Megan and her best friend, Lisa Dixon, were driving home after an evening of babysitting and hanging out on Pensacola Beach. Eric was also heading home from an evening at the beach. He'd been hanging out with friends all day and had just capped off the night with some drinks at a local beach bar. At 2:30 a.m., Eric was at the intersection of Fairpoint Drive and Highway 98, about a 5-minute drive from the bar, waiting for the light to turn. His truck was having battery problems, so he revved the engine to keep it from stalling. A white car in the right merge lane beside him mistook Eric's revving as a challenge to street race. Both cars jumped off the line. Eric was oblivious to the white car beside him until it started cutting into his lane. Eric's truck rammed into the back of Megan and Lisa's car, sending it spinning out of control before impacting a tree. Both girls' necks were snapped by the impact. They were killed instantly. Neither Lisa nor Megan had been drinking that night.
About 8:45, my sister-in-law shows up at the door and she's standing there and she said, "There's been an accident. It was Megan. She didn't make it." And my mind immediately began racing about the last time I talked to her.
I picked up the phone and said, "Hey, Dad," and he said, "I have something I need to tell you." And I said, "Okay." And immediately, your heart sinks.
He said, "There's been an accident. It was your sister." And he didn't even have to tell me which sister. And that's all I remember.
And he said, "Well, there's been an accident, and it was Megan. She didn't make it."
I learned what wailing was, from deep down in your soul, this horrible wailing comes out. I said to her, "No, you're kidding."
A million memories, a whole lifetime just flashes before your eyes, and you just think, I thought, oh, does Carmen know?
I fell on the floor, and I'm assuming that I fainted. I don't know.
I woke up in the back seat of my truck, and it was in the middle of the road, and I had no idea what had happened. I pulled the door handle and pushed the door, and that's when the glass falls out of the door. And I didn't realize until later that I was actually getting out of the back passenger side door of my truck. The officers finally, they took me to the ambulance, and they told me they were going to take my blood, and I asked them why. Why do you want a blood sample from me? What's really going on here? And they said, well, that's what we're trying to find out with you. And I said, well, a car cut me off, and I tried to avoid an accident, and my truck rolled, and that's the best I can tell you. And they said, don't act like you don't know there's 2 girls dead in that car over there. When they said those words, everything in my life started to kind of flash before my eyes. My own life started to flash before my eyes, and I'm thinking, how could this be? How could my life have come to this? It's like you're all of a sudden waking up in a nightmare, and you want it to be over with. You just see all your hopes and your dreams. You see how proud people were of you and how disappointed they're going to be in you now. And then you start thinking about, well, what about these other people that I don't even know?
Blood tests showed Eric's blood alcohol level at 2.5 times the legal limit.
Part of me knew that I shouldn't be driving, but the other part of me said, yeah, but what about the other 50 times that you've been worse than this and nothing ever happened? You always seem to made it, One of the guys that was with me earlier that day came over. He was going to jump start my truck, and he said, are you sure you should be driving anyway? Why don't you just go ahead and leave the truck down here? I have expensive rims, and I have some stereo equipment in this truck, and I really don't want to leave it here anyway, so yeah, I can drive, Mike, I'll be fine. Everything's going to be cool. I'll be safe.
On October 3rd, 2003, Eric was found guilty of DUI manslaughter and sentenced to 22 years in state prison, 11 years each for Megan and Lisa's deaths.
Eric Smallridge was a good guy. He had his life in front of him. He made a horrible choice, and the consequence of that choice, we can never back away from. It's there. It's there forever and for everybody.
A decision can be so dramatic that you graduate from college in April, and in July you go to prison, and that's exactly what happened to me. The decision to drink and drive that night cost me everything. I had high expectations. I had plans of getting married. I had plans of working my way up the corporate ladder. Everything that I had hoped and dreamed of kind of was just, it was swept away all in that moment.
We prosecute DUI cases very aggressively. We do not plea bargain or reduce a DUI case from DUI to reckless if we can prove it.
If you get caught drinking and driving, you lose your license, you are adjudicated guilty. That is there forever. It can never be expunged or removed. Mom can't help you, Dad can't help you, Grandpa can't help you, I can't help you. There are consequences for our choices. If you drink and drive and kill somebody, you're going to prison.
A prison is a very bad place to be. I've personally prosecuted a defendant for killing another person in prison, and the violence inside prison is really, in my opinion, remarkable.
There is violence, plenty of it, but you just do your best to stay safe, and you just pray that that your family will still be there when you get out. I've lost my grandma since I've been in here, and I know plenty of people who have lost their parents, and it's devastating.
What I would say is, if you're going to drink, and I would urge you not to if you're underage, but I'm not stupid. I know sometimes you're going to do it. If you make that first bad choice, don't make the second one. Don't drive. Don't get in a car where somebody is driving. Because the consequences of that can be life-altering forever.
A guy came to my high school to tell me about drinking and driving, and I was too cool for that. It wasn't going to happen to me. You're preaching to the choir here. I just, for some reason, thought I was above that. I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof. But now here I am sitting in prison.
People have to understand it has a devastating effect on the families, and the remorse that the survivor and the parents of the survivor have for those who were less fortunate and who perished is ongoing. It does not go away.
If you make the decision to drink and drive, you are risking so many other lives other than your own. There are family members that you are hurting and bringing into this horrible tragedy. There are so many other people affected by that one decision that you've made, and as Eric Smallridge would tell you, it's a very, very selfish decision to make.